Another new set, another batch of SPECs. We've had some good, some bad, and some amazing. Recently, a lot of the SPECs we have received seem to be retrains of cards from previous formats, so hopefully we'll be getting some more unique ones inside of Stellar Crown. Surprisingly, this set will only be giving us 3 SPEC cards, unlike the previous mainline sets which have given us 6. I'm guessing this is because Shrouded Fable will be releasing a month before this set, and that also only has 3 SPEC cards, so it kind of evens it out. Without further ado, let's take a look at the 3 SPEC cards that will be releasing in Stellar Crown. But before that, make sure to like the video, comment and subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. Starting off with one I have already talked about in another video, that being the tool card Sparkling Crystal, which reads, the attack cost of the Terra Pokemon this card is attached to is reduced by 1 of any type of energy. This card is mainly meant to be played alongside the new Stellar Pokemon that will be debuting in this set, as they all feature an attack that costs 3 different energy types, meaning that with this tool card attached, you can fulfill their attack cost much easier. However, this card can also be used with any Terra type Pokemon, meaning that you can reduce the attack cost of other Terra Pokemon and not just the new Stellar Pokemon. Charizard, Dragapult, the Ogerpon cards, Greninja, and any others we will see in future sets. This card is very good and will most likely see play, especially if any of the Stellar Pokemon from this set or future sets make their way into certain decks. Next up is the Stadium card Great Tree, which reads, once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a Stage 1 Pokemon that evolves from one of their basic Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. If that Pokemon is now a Stage 1 Pokemon, they search their deck for a Stage 2 Pokemon that evolves from that Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. You can't use this effect on a basic Pokemon on your first turn, or on a basic Pokemon that was put into play this turn. Okay, so basically what this card does is it allows you to evolve a basic Pokemon you have in play up into a Stage 1 evolution and then into its Stage 2 evolution. So you can evolve a Pokemon like Charmander into Charmeleon and then into Charizard. However, the effect can't be used on a Pokemon that was played this turn, and it also can't be used if it's your first turn of the game. This card is basically just Forest of Giant Plants, but with some very big differences. Forest of Giant Plants worked only with grass Pokemon, however its effect wasn't once per turn, so you could just constantly play and evolve your grass Pokemon as much as you wanted. This allowed for a very disgusting combo involving Shift Tree from Next Destinies. Its ability says that when you evolve into this card, you flip a coin. If heads, you can shuffle one of your opponent's Pokemon into the deck. Even though it's a dark type, both of its pre-evolutions had grass type printings, so you could possibly evolve all the way up into 4 copies of this card and win before your opponent even takes their first turn. Great Tree is a much more balanced version of Forest, while also making the card more generic for any Stage 2 decks. However, you can only use it once per turn, which is still very strong, as it's basically another copy of Rare Candy that can evolve from the deck. But it does require you to play the mid-stage evolution, which only a couple of decks do. Not to mention the fact that your opponent can also use it, which could help them out a lot. The card is very strong, but I honestly don't think it's worth playing. It does help you establish your evolutions much quicker, but evolution decks already have a lot of tools to do that. Plus, its effect is reciprocal, so while it helps you, it can also help your opponent if they are also playing an evolution deck. Also, since you are evolving from the deck, certain evolution abilities will not activate, such as Charizard's Infernal Rain, as it specifically says when you play this Pokemon from the hand. The card is good, but I don't think it will see play. Evolution decks are pretty consistent to begin with and are able to get Stage 2 Pokemon into play very quickly, plus there are just better and more useful SPECs available to play over this card. And our third and final SPEC of this video is Deluxe Bomb, which reads, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, even if that Pokemon is KO'd, put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, then discard this card. 12 damage counters, or 120 damage, is quite a lot and can help you push towards a potential knockout if your opponent attacks into your Pokemon. However, this card is just a low power version of Giant Bomb from Unified Minds, which had a similar effect, but required your Pokemon to take a certain amount of damage, and it only placed 10 damage counters. However, the cards still saw a lot of play because 100 damage was a lot, and even though your Pokemon had to take 180 in order to trigger the effect, that number was very easy to reach for most decks. Plus it also helped in deterring your opponent from attacking, since if they hit that 180 damage, they will take a lot of damage in return, which could help you in knocking out that Pokemon. Especially since this was around the time of tag teams, which gave free prize cards, and only had on average 260 HP, maybe more, maybe less, making them very easy to KO if they took that 100 damage from Giant Bomb. Deluxe Bomb does have its benefits by doing more damage, and it doesn't require you to take a specific amount of damage, plus it doesn't automatically discard itself at the end of your opponent's turn like Giant Bomb did. However, it's a one-time use item card, unless you play cards to recover it back, unlike Giant Bomb, which you could play multiple copies of, and back then, recycling cards was a lot easier. There is also the fact that Lost Vacuum exists in the format, meaning that your opponent could permanently remove this card from the game, meaning that your one and only A-Spec is completely wasted. Maybe once Lost Vacuum rotates next year, this could see some play, but it falls under the same disadvantages as other A-Specs in the game, that being there are just better ones to play over this. When the right cards or decks come around, it could see some play, but as of right now, it'll just end up as bulk. This is probably the weakest set of A-Spec cards we have received so far. While they are all decent and have strong effects, they all have the glaring weakness to removal cards such as Lost Vacuum, and in the case of Giant Tree, it just loses to other Stadium cards. Sparkling Crystal could see play at some point depending on what new Stellar and Terra Pokemon we receive in future sets, but the other two A-Specs, I honestly don't think we'll see any play whatsoever, at least not right now. Maybe within the next year or so we could see some cards and decks that can abuse these A-Specs, but the future is looking a bit bleak for A-Specs in general if these are the type of effects we will start to see. Taking powerful cards from previous formats, some of which have been banned and expanded, and attempting to balance them for the modern game, but balancing them a little too much and in turn making them too weak for the modern game. Unless our final sets of the year give us some incredibly powerful cards, players will just be sticking to the same old A-Specs we've been playing throughout the year, up until their inevitable rotation in a couple of years. Years that seem closer than you may think.